Hey, what's up? John Sonmez from simpleprogrammer.com. So I have a topic that I'm going to talk about today. I've talked about this topic quite a few times, but I think it's important enough that it's worth bringing up and looking at from different angles. You'll find if you listen to this channel, if you subscribe, if you haven't already, click that subscribe button. But you'll find that I do tend to look at a lot of the different subjects from different angles, because I think it helps us, especially for reinforcement, is to see things and view things from different angles. That's why I read a lot of similar books. I've talked about that before as well. But today I want to talk about this idea that you go down faster than you go up. And this is one of those kind of principles in life that I think you need to understand. You need to really get into your head, because it applies in so many different areas. And once you get this and you realize the implications of this, it's going to help you to optimize your life and optimize what you're doing to prevent the downslide, more so than worrying about the up part of things and trying to hit it really hard to go up. And it's more of a gradual climb is important, because it takes you a lot longer to climb up than it does to fall down. You can lose a lot of altitude very quickly when you fall, whereas it takes a lot of hard work and battle to gain altitude in life. Now, I'll point you to a couple of videos that I've done that are similar. I did a video that is called Holding the Line. You can check that. And by the way, when I point to these videos, there's a few things. So holding the line, a few things maybe that I would advise you, kind of how I've designed this to be delivered, or what I'm envisioning here is maybe you click the link if you're on a desktop, and you hold that video till you're done watching this one, and then you can play that one. That's what I'm thinking here, to give you kind of some other places to go from here. Or at the end of the videos, I usually have places to go. I want you to be able to get more than just what's in it, to go more deep, if you will, or to kind of explore around these areas. That's why I link to all these videos. If you're on a mobile, usually the videos that I talk about are in the description below, so you can always click those, or there might be a card up here. Hopefully YouTube will eventually improve the mobile experience, where you can just click on the annotations from your mobile device. Or you can always search, right? That's the other thing, is you can go to the channel and you can search, and there's a search box actually on my channel. It's a little hidden, but you can search for videos if I mention something. And usually I've talked about pretty much every topic. So anyway, I did that video on holding the line, and it's sort of the same thing. The other one I point you to here is on damage control, I believe. I believe that's a separate video, and this is a very similar concept. So if you want more of what I'm going to talk about today, those are two places that I would recommend that you go on this channel. Now, let's talk about what I mean here by you go down faster than you go up. And then let's look at some examples here, right? I mean, this is just sort of a principle in life. It's always easier to go down than it is to go up. It's just if you climb something high, okay, just at a very physical level, it's hard to climb up a lot of stairs to get up somewhere high. But once you get up there, you can fall off a building, and you can fall very easily and very fast and get down much faster, right? Everything in life seems to work that way, right? It's really, really difficult to build something. Okay, to build a building, let's say that you're building a building, but it's much more easy to tear that down, right? It could take you a very long time to build something up, but you can destroy it instantly. You could write code and you could build an application. It could take you months or years to build, and you can delete it with the stroke of a button. It can be undone that simply. So. And it's so much in your life, right? This is true. If I've had this experience. I'm sure you've had this experience multiple times. Where, I mean, I just recently had this experience when I was sort of trying to carb up over Thanksgiving, and I thought, and part of it, I did this video on justifications, because we always do this, right? In your head, in justifying things for yourself, or making excuses for yourself. And part of it was justification, but part of it was like, okay, I do need to kind of do a refuel before I go fasting again and try to, because I feel like I'm kind of stuck metabolism wise. But anyway, I overdid it, obviously. But I actually went from, to give you some real numbers, I went from, like, on that Monday of Thanksgiving week, I weighed in at 212, okay? When I came back from my trip and from Thanksgiving, and I only went crazy for 3 days of eating crazy amounts of pie. I mean, ridiculous amounts of pie. I mean, insanely ridiculous amounts of pie. Okay, let's be honest here. Okay, I did that for about 3 days. When I came back, I was 236 pounds. So I went from 212 to 236 in less than a week. Now, some of that's water weight and all this stuff, but still, that's pretty insane, right? Okay, I set myself back. When I looked at it, probably a good 2 to 3 weeks worth of progress, honestly, in about 3 days. It was much easier to go down than it was to go. It took so long to chisel out those abs, right? Running 10 miles a week, dieting hard, fasting, right? Going to the gym, lifting weights, all this stuff. I guess I didn't lose muscles. I didn't lose that part of it. But doing all this stuff, right, to get there, yet in what, just a few days, bam, you can reverse a huge amount of that. So going down is easier, right? And I'm sure you've had a similar experience. And this is why it's so hard for a lot of people to diet, to change their body, to get in shape, is because it's so much easier to sabotage and to go down than it is to go up. Climbing up is slow. Making progress, any kind of progress, spiritually, physically, mentally, right? Professionally, takes time. It's hard. That's difficult, okay? But anything that's going to take you down is very easy. It's easy to, it's hard to make money. Making money is hard. Well, relatively hard, much more difficult, but it's easy to blow money. It's easy to spend money. You can do that in an instant. You can take money that it took you years to earn, and you can drop it on the spin of a roulette table and lose it all in 5 seconds. That's how things work. And so, why am I saying all this? Why am I telling you this, right? And why am I giving you so many examples? The reason is simple. It basically boils down to this. If you understand this principle in life, right, then you're not going to optimize. You're going to do two things, okay? First of all, you're going to optimize. How many times am I going to say that? You're going to optimize for making progress in the up direction in little increments that are steady, that you can hold on to, right? That's where the consistency and persistence comes into play. I believe I've got a video where I talk about the consistency and persistence and those principles. Okay, so that's the number one thing, right? And that's critical. You got to do this, right? You got to realize that, I've talked about this before. Running a marathon is great, but you're going to have much more progress if you ran, a couple miles a day for a year, rather than killing yourself and running one marathon and never doing it again, right? And that's how a lot of people treat a lot of things in life. They try to do these heroic efforts, right? And they do it, and then they don't have persistence. They don't have commitment. They don't follow through. They don't keep on going. It's better to do a little bit at a time, right? I'm writing a book, or I'm finishing my book right now. You can sign up if you want for the book to get a free version of the Complete Software Developer's Career Guide. And when I say free version, I mean it's online. Like you can check it out as I'm releasing it on the blog, but you have the option to buy it eventually when I actually release the full version as well. But you can sign up there. Anyway, as I'm doing this, right, what I am doing is I'm writing for 2 pomodori a day. So I'm basically writing for about an hour a day, every day. I've been doing this for about 6 months. I'm almost done with the book at this point. I'm on the next last chapter. And that, over 6 months, that little bit, 1 hour every day, bam, 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 that all added up to write this book. And this is a huge book. It's about 180,000 word book, okay? It's a big book. It's going to be a 2-volume tome. I couldn't have done this with heroics. I couldn't have just said, okay, and one day I'm going to blast out this book. I would have, even in a week, I would have burned out. It would have not come together. But by doing it little by little, I'm making that forward progress, and I'm not letting myself slip backwards, right? So that's the first thing, is you want to optimize for that. You want to realize that in order to make forward progress, to go up, it's slow. You have to realize that it is slow, that true forward progress. And so you need to do a little bit each day. It doesn't have to be huge heroic efforts, right? It has to be sustainable, because that cumulative effort over time is going to be really important. So that's the first thing. And that's actually not as important as what I'm going to tell you next, which is the second thing that you should get from this principle, which is that, and this is where those other videos I pointed to at the beginning with damage control and preventing loss, it comes into play. And if you listen to really good investors, I've talked about this before, what they do is they talk about this idea of limiting the downside as much as possible. So that's what makes them really good investors. They have virtually no risk. So what you want to do is you want to limit the downside. You want to do damage control. You want to optimize all of your resources, all of your energy towards not falling down, and if you do fall down, minimizing how much that you fall down, right? If you think about it, because that's where you can lose that altitude so fast, right? It can take you a long time, like I said, to make money, but one night in a casino, you can destroy it. It can take you a long time to get in shape, to lose weight, but a couple of nights of eating pecan pie and you can lose a lot of that, right? Some of you are like crazy, like, John, you look good. I know, but it's all right. But I made backwards progress, and you will too. Like it will happen to you, and it's inevitable, right? You have to realize that you're not always going to be making forward progress. You're not always going to be successful, right? You're going to mess up. You're going to screw up at times. You're going to self-sabotage. We're all capable of doing that. I do that all the time. We all do that. But one thing that I've gotten pretty good at, well, I'd say two things here. One thing in particular is that when I mess up, I usually don't mess up so bad, because I know that when I'm in a free fall, that's a bad place to be. I got to get out of the free fall as soon as possible, pull that parachute quickly as possible, and see if I can, catch an updrift and get back up, get back up to the plane. That's what you do when you skydive, is you try to get back. That's a bad analogy, but you know what I'm saying here, right? You want to try and stop the damage as much, that damage control. You want to optimize for that, because if you know psychologically in your head, if you know that the down is way easier, and it's way easier to go down, and that you can destroy a huge amount of up progress in a much shorter period of time, then you're going to optimize to prevent that from happening, okay? And that's the key, is because so many people, and this is the thing, right? You can spend a lot of time, if you, let's just take the fitness, the diet thing, right? Because I know that some of you are in this cycle, and I've been in this cycle before, but you could spend, like 3-4 weeks, okay? So what if you're in this cycle of 3 weeks, you're doing good, you're losing weight, you're working out, you're doing exercise, right? You're making this progress, and then about every 3 weeks you have this binge weekend where you just pig out and you reverse 3 weeks worth of work. In fact, you reverse 4 weeks worth, so you end up worse than you are, and you feel guilty, and then you make it out for 3 weeks again, and then so 90% of the time or 80% of the time you're doing the right thing. But that 10 or 20% of the time when you're doing the wrong thing, it's negating the 80% you're doing when you're doing it right. Right? This happens so many places in your life. Look for when you're finding places of consistent failure in your life, okay, where you just can't seem to break out, where you just can't seem to hit the success that you want. And you're like, what is going on here? Look for those places. Look and say, okay, I'm spending all this effort, but I'm sabotaging myself with this small piece. It's always that. There's always this 10 or 20% that's knocking out this 80%. And so you wonder, why am I putting in all this effort, but I'm not getting the results that I want? And the reason why is because you need to limit the downside. You need to figure out what are those places in life where I'm blowing it all, where I am pigging out on pecan pie and putting whipped cream on top of that son of a bitch and chowing down on that sucker for 3 days, and I'm negating 4 weeks, 5 weeks worth of work in my life. And I'm not, this doesn't just apply to fitness and diet. It applies to so many things that you're doing in your life, in your career and relationships, all kinds of areas of life. So figure that out. And then damage control, limit it, stop it from happening. When you're going to mess up, you're going to trip, you're going to fall, but you don't have to go into a downward spiral. The more that skill that you get, right, that skill that I talked about that I've gotten fairly good at is limiting the damage control. And sometimes I still screw it up, or limiting the damage, right, doing damage control. And sometimes I still screw it up, but for the most part now I've gotten pretty good at damage control. I've gotten pretty good at when I mess up, I don't mess up too bad. And then the other skill, the other piece of that is getting up quickly, right? You fall down, you immediately say, as quickly as I can, I'm getting back up and I'm getting back on the horse and I'm going, because the longer that you stay in that danger zone, the longer you stay in that place where you're taking that damage, it's gonna harm you. It's gonna be, again, it could be that 20% that's knocking out the 80%. You want to get out of that zone. You want to get out of the radiation zone as soon as possible and get to safety, because you're gonna lose your whole health bar real quickly. It's chunking away. So quickly get out of there. Pull yourself out of the radiation zone. Pull yourself out and stop taking the damage, right? Even if you're not making forward progress, at least get yourself out. And you don't have to make a huge amount of forward progress. Just a little bit, day after day. And then when the shit hits the fan, you damage control. You make sure that it doesn't hit so hard. When you plan for screw ups, you know you're going to screw up, but you plan for minimizing the damage that they cause. All right, I think I've beaten the dead horse. Okay, I think I have, but I think this is so important. That's why I'm saying this. So you fall down much faster than you get up. But make sure that you get up fast and make sure that you're consistent over time. And that's the formula for success. And really, I would challenge you, like I said, look at your own life, look at the places where you're consistently failing, okay? And look for this pattern. Look for this pattern of doing a lot of work, 80% of the work, and then having that little 10% or 20% screw up that is eliminating that 80%. And what most people do, I'll tell you one last thing here, is what they try to do is they try to increase that 80%. They're like, oh, I need to work harder. Oh, I need to do more. And sometimes that can help you, or it can seem to help you, but it's so much more effective to decrease the amount of damage. If you can take, that 10% that's knocking out the 90% of your effort, and you can knock that down to 5%, that's way more effective than it is to increase your 90%, to increase what you're doing over there. It's more effective to do the damage control than it is to apply more work, because you might already be working hard enough. You might already be doing what you need to do. It's just that you're self-sabotaging, and if you can just, you can't prevent that from happening totally, right? That it's going to happen. You're going to screw up. You're going to fail. Don't try and be perfect. But if you can say, oh, okay, I just minimized that amount of damage, the length of time that I'm staying in the radiation zone, that's what's going to make all the difference. If you liked this video, if you found it useful, click that subscribe button below. If you haven't subscribed already, if you did already, awesome. That's great. Share it. I'll talk to you next time. Take care.